Alright, so today we're going to be talking about inheritance. And the whole concept of inheritance, is that you have a child class and you have a parent class. And all the attributes in the parent class, the child class inherits. And then the child class can use them as if they were defined in the child class. So it's not as confusing as I said it to be, but it's actually quite interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and create a parent class, so just call it parent for now. And I'm going to have an initialize function where I don't do anything. Just pass in self and just say print class initialized. Okay. And then over here, I'm going to create a function, just a simple function. I'm just going to say parent func and pass in self again. And then what I want to do is I want to print out parent func being called. And now I'm going to create a function called, so actually before this, let me create a variable up top. So I'll show you what I'm doing, but stick with me here. So I'm going to create a variable called, let's say, counter for now. And I'm going to set this equal to 10. So in this new function, let's call it def set counter. Okay. In my def set counter, I'm passing in two parameters, self and counter. All I want to do is say parent.counter should now be equal to, or counter should now be equal to, let me change this actually. So our set counter function, two parameters, self and the new number, whichever the new counter is. So I'm going to call this num, and we want to update our counter variable to become the new num that we've passed in. So def set counter self comma num, our counter variable will now be equal to num. So it might be a little bit confusing what I'm doing, but as soon as we create a child class, I'll show you why I'm doing it. Now, one last thing, let's go ahead and create our print counter, I guess. So def show counter. And all we want to do here is we pass in self and alright, and in here we just want to print out our counter. So I'm just going to say print parent.counter. Okay, something quite simple, and let's go ahead and convert this into a string, otherwise it'll give us an error. Okay, so this is our parent class, and now I'm going to create a child class. All this child class is going to have is two very simple statements, def init self, and all this will call is, it's going to say print child class being initialized. And last but not least, for our second function over here, I'm going to create a function called child method, okay, or child func. And all this is going to do is, again, take in self and just print out child func being called. So we've created two classes, okay? And I'm really sorry that it took so long. I guess I got a bit boring in the middle of that. But we've now finally created two classes, one parent and one child. So as you can see, I made one small mistake, and that is that I haven't made child class a child of parent. So what I can do over here is class child and then in brackets parent. And all that says is, hey, this class is now a child class of our parent class. So we probably shouldn't have named our class child because it becomes confusing when I'm talking about it. But basically, by putting our parent class over here, we're saying that this class is now a child of our parent class. So let's go ahead and create an instance of our child class. I'm going to call mine C, I guess. So C is equal to child and child class being initialized. Awesome. Now let's take a look at the functions we can call. So if I say c.childfunc, what happens? Child attribute has no, okay, that's because I spelled it with an H, my bad. So child func being called, there we go. And now the cool thing with child classes is that we can call any function we want of our parent class. So let's go ahead and call the parent func, for example. c.parentfunc. What happens? Parent func being called. So what we can do is, using our child class, we can get any attribute, any function from our parent class and use it in our function. For example, if I call c.counter, I get 10. Because what we're doing is we're calling any variable, any function that exists in our parent class in our child class. Now let's go ahead and call our setCounter function. So c.setCounter, and it takes in one attribute and it says, hey, what's the new counter you want to set? Let's set it as 20. And now what I can do is if I say c dot, what was our show counter, I believe? Yes, show counter, I get 20. So what we've done is we have modified the values in our child class or in our parent class via our child class. So we called the setCounter function in our parent class, changed the counter to 20, and then called our showCounter function to print out the new counter. So this is the whole, or a very basic example of child and parent class, where the child class inherits the attributes, it inherits the functions of the parent class, and then what you can do is call these functions, call these variables wherever you want in your child class. So very interesting, I guess. Play around with it. You can go ahead, create multiple child classes, multiple subclasses of a main class. For example, if you want your child class to be a child of parent and parent 2, you can do that by just putting a comma over here. Anyways, I'm not going to go into too much detail about inheritance. This is just a very brief introduction on how things work. Now, in the next lecture, I want to show you one last thing, which is overriding methods. So right now, we've learned that you can call functions, call attributes of your parent class, but what if you have two of the same functions, one in child, one in parent? How do we make it so that the child function does something different? Alright, that's it for this lecture, and I hope to see you in the next lecture. Bye. Alright, so I guess I'll see you in the next lecture.